Emavikini lamabili lengcile bese niletheleke lihlelo lobugebengu bema-unauthorized debit orders. Kuleli viki leliphelile lelinye lamabhange alapha eNingizimu Afrika limemetele ukuthi ke bathengi labasebenzisa i-FNB app noma ke online banking angeke babhadaliswe uma bacela ukubuyiselwa ema-debit orders abo langaphasi kwa R200. Sethemba ke ukuthi ke sombululo sekuphelisa lobugebengu lobo sitawutholakala madvude. Sawubona ke mbukeli, this is Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Lihlelo ke lulethela ke tindzaba netixwayiso letitsinza nini abathengi. Asisive ukuthi indzaba namhla ithini. In a society where consumers are struggling and sometimes evade paying their debts, creditors use every available option to collect what is owing. And a Garnishee order is one of their favorite instruments. Now, this court instruction forces, it does not even ask, it forces an employer to deduct money from an employee's salary to pay off an outstanding debt. And many victims of this debt collection measure have been financially ruined. Yebo ke mbukelo ungasibalekela ke sikwenethi kwesikhashana ngekuthi ungaphenduli tincingo kepha ke utatisola uma sebekushaya ngeGarnishee order lapho ke sebathathela bona ke emvuzweni wakho. Asasive na umbiko.
I hand down the judgment. Court adjourns.
Xa kuthethwa ngomyalelo wenkundla ogunyazisa ukutsalwa kwemali emvuzweni iGarnishee order ngolwasemzini sukube ungasadlalwa nawe khawube nombono usithi ulindele umvuzo intwenga suka uyifumane ingaphelelanga imali yakho nto ungakhange uyilindele.
There have been instances at the Credit Ombudsman Office where we have had complaints from consumers in respect to Garnishee orders having been implemented against their salaries and their take-home was a zero.
Wavita nofal uthi zininzi iziganeko ezifana nezi ezifika ku-ofisi yakhe. Uthi abantu abayazi ukuba iGarnishee order isebenza njani kwaye abawazi namalungelo abo xa sekufika lo myalelo wenkundla.
Where is your reference number? You don't have a reference number, Ilan.
Le meko idalwa maxa wambi kungahlawuli imali ebibolekiwe ngokuthi umboleki aye enkundleni ematyala yokufuna umyalelo onyanzelisa intlawulo. Okanye xa ungafuni kondla abo baluxanduva lwakho njengosapho nabantwana. Lo myalelo ufuneka ngokuthi lo umtyala imali aye enkundleni kwindawo osebenza kuyo. Akufumana uyawuthatha use apho usebenza khona ayokunika umqeshi wakho. Ukuba umqeshi wakho akaboni isiphene kuwo kunyanzelekile ukuba atsale lo mali inkundla ithi mayitsalwe. Ingangumvuzo wonke okanye inxalenye yawo.
The fact that the employer gets served the document, the court order, means that that employer has an obligation in terms of the court order to now proceed to deduct in terms of the court order from the consumer's salary. Now, many employers are very affair with exactly how Garnishees work. Others are not. Some are nice enough to say to the employee, Mr. Consumer, we've now received a court order. We will be implementing a Garnishee from your salary from the end of this month. Other employers are not that keen to inform employees. So that consumer finds at the end of the month suddenly a deduction of his salary and is totally oblivious as to how this came about.
Uheidi Thompson ingaphephe kwimiba ephathele nabantu abaqeshiweyo. Uthi abaqeshwa baphelelwa ngamandla ngokona ngoko xa kusithiwa iGarnishee order ifikile. Uthi umbono ukutsalelwa imali emvuzweni ngaphandle kwentando yakho woyikwa nangubani na. Ngokuka Thompson akho ngxaki ingenasombululo.
If the employee is going to suffer and they can't even support their dependents, they can't live because of the amount being deducted from the salary, by all means they can go back to the clerk of the court because they can either get it cancelled or amended or even suspended for a period of time.
Uthi abaqeshwa abaninzi balwa babelugcwabevu bethuka umqeshi ngelithi akanangunya lokutsala imali yetyala. uThompson uthi lonto ibangelwa ngabaqeshi abathatha isigqibo sokutsala bengakhange bahlale phansi nomqeshwa achaphazelekayo.
What is required, and a lot of employers forget this, it gets pushed through to HR or payroll, they deduct it from the employee salary, and then we have problems because the employee wasn't informed. We should always inform the employee.
ukaThompson uthi abaqeshi banokuyithatha lula into yeGarnishee order. Loo nto ibona ngongahambi liphezulu xa olu xwebhu selufika kwiiofisi zomqeshi.
They don't immediately implement the Garnishee order. Unfortunately, the one that's going to suffer is the employee. Why? Because now interest gets raised because that creditor was expecting X amount of money as per the Garnishee and it's not coming. So now the poor employee, there's interest and it becomes almost an infinite amount in terms of payment. So it's very important for employers too and HR payroll to deal with it the right way.
Uqoqosho lwaseMzantsi Afrika luthwaxela izinga lenyuka ngokunyuka labantu abantyumpantyumpeka ematyaleni. Loo nto ithi ukuba awulumkanga ungazibona nawe sewujongene neGarnishee order. Kodwa izinto azifani nakuqala apho usidi usajonge ityala lasebhankeni suke kuthi gqi elemoto usaxakeyileyo kuthi kuphutshulula umyalelo wenkundla othi makuthathwe neyokugqibela imali ebisasele. Ngoku wonke ubani unelungelo lokulwa abebomvu xa erhanela unyawo lwemfene kwindlela iGarnishee order ekhutshwe ngayo. Amaziko afana ne-Credit Ombudsman anceda wonke ubani simahla. Uvuyisile Mdoda, ilungelo lakho.
Awusabonke bekunene kuvuyisile Mdoda ngalo mbiko. Kusifundisa kabanti-ke ukuthi emaGarnishee order asebenza kanjani. Asesimukele-ke Nikki Lala Mohan, u-Credit Ombudsman, kanye naMzubanzi Nduzulwana lovela-ke elitiko letebulungiswa. A very good afternoon to you, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Thank you for
Now, this is an issue that we are all accustomed to and well familiar with, particularly the working class. But kulabo ke labangadi ukuthi emaGarnishee order yini, asusichazela abantu ukuthi isilwanisile leGarnishee order.
iGarnishee order ngumyalelo wenkundla othi ukhutshwe yinkundla emveni koba umuntu ethe wafumanisa umyalelo ngomyalelo phambi koba icourt igrant iGarnishee order echazayo ukuthi mhlekazi okanye mama unetyala endaweni ethile efanele uba uyalibhatala. Into nje abantu bakuthi abathi bayenze kungazinothisi ezo zigunyaziso ziye zikhutshwe ngamagqwetha e-creditors. Bayiyeke nje ihambe olo hlobo. Aze athi ke umntu lo utyalwa imali aye kwinkundla kamantyi acele ukuba inkundla achaze ukuthi enkundleni ndimnikile inotice ezinga lo mntu owayimali ndicela ke inkundla indinike i-judgment order, which is emolument attachment, and thereafter le judgment iye inikezelwe umqeshi lowo walo mntu ukwenzela uba athi atsale imali kulo mntu utyala imali.
Now, Nikki, there are different types of Garnishee orders. What are these?
I think maybe we must make a clear distinction between a Garnishee order and an emoluments attachment order.
Yeah.
They are two different things. An emoluments attachment order relates to attaching salary, wages, payment through an employer. Okay. A Garnishee is any debt or anything that you have spare that somebody can grab to satisfy a debt. And take an example of a Garnishee. You sell a house. There's money to be paid over to you, but you owe X money. X can then, through his attorneys, contact the conveyancing attorney and say that I've got a judgment and I want my money prior to paying him out of the house. Or if you're a commission earner, when you're a commission earner, they can attach your commission as a Garnishee. So there's two different things. It's an emoluments attachment order. Emoluments relate to when you're working, a salary, a wage. But Garnishee is anything that you have spare cash coming in.
Okay.
Selling a house, selling a car, making a profit, where there's some spare cash, they can take that. So it's not restricted to a salary.
So in the case of the Garnishee order, I may not necessarily be working, but as long as I've got an income.
Absolutely. An income, or you're getting some funds. And a classic example is the sale of a house. You're selling your house for a profit. The conveyancing attorney is going to pay you the profit. But prior to paying you the profit, you can get there before and say, but this man owes me 10,000 rand. Pay me that 10,000 before you pay him. So there's a distinction between the two.
Okay. So what are the advantages, I mean, the pros and cons of Garnishee orders?
Well, they serve the same purpose. The purpose is it's a collection tool. Remember that people will go for an emoluments attachment order or a Garnishee in the last instance. And we always advise people that when you are in trouble, you receive a summons, contact the other side to make arrangements. These things kick in only when you don't play your part. And it can only happen through a judicial process, which is, firstly, you've got to get a judgment. Without the judgment, nothing flows thereafter.
Right.
So the right comes through the judgment.
Right. Now, yini ke emalungelo debtors noma ke whosoever is receiving that garnishee order, yini emalungelo lengba nawo?
Okokuqala umuntu othe wafumana i-judgment e-court uye anikwe approximately 14 days to approach the court and apply for a rescission of judgment. Emveni koko, if the judgment creditor is in agreement that you have certain terms that you are putting forward in terms of ensuring that you repay the debts, then the court can listen to your issue and try to mediate in a form of rescinding the judgment that has been granted against you.
Now, there's been a widespread issue of illegally obtained garnishee orders. You know, someone bribing a court clerk to issue a particular garnishee order over a particular individual. So how do I ascertain the validity or the legality of a garnishee order?
Well, there has been a widespread, as we have indicated, especially in certain provinces in our country. Also, Gauteng is included on that. What can consumer do is to, when he notices that a certain judgment has been granted against him, he's supposed to approach the court where that judgment was granted and investigate whether that judgment was granted legally or not. And if it was granted illegally, that consumer needs to approach the court immediately and try to engage the court clerk to try to resolve the matter.
Okay. Nikki, do you want to weigh in on the legality or the illegality of garnishee orders?
Certainly. There has been widespread abuse. That abuse we see is stopping. Our office dealt with, in about 3 years ago, 50% of the 5,000 cases that we normally resolve in the year related to garnishees. Because of that, there was abuse there where you could get it stamped by a clerk of a court, and they would go to courts that are amenable to granting these. But since the cases of particularly the Constitutional Court case and the case in the Western Cape, where the Standard Bank Law Clinic took up on behalf of farm workers, the law has changed. And we see that coming through in our offices. We're now doing about 10% of garnishee compared to 50%.
Okay.
And that's because there's proper judicial oversight. You've got to go before a magistrate, you've got to do the necessary informations, etc. So we're seeing that abuse. The fact that it's there still, but it's not as widespread as it used to be.
Let's leave it there for now, but then we'll certainly continue with the legality of garnishee orders after the break. Remember, you can run, but you certainly cannot hide from a garnishee order. Don't run away from a creditor. Be honest about your financial situation and make payment arrangements. Welcome back. Our participation lines are now open, 011-714-6918 or 011-714-6919. Sikhona ke futhi ku-Facebook na ku-Twitter. Let's continue our conversation on garnishee orders. Now, Nikki, before we enter that ad break, I want us to continue where we left off. So if a garnishee order is being served upon me by a sheriff or officer of the court, what is it I should look out for? What sort of questions I should pose and what should I do?
Okay. When you get the garnishee order, the intention to place a garnishee order, they'll serve it on you or the employer. And that may be a bit of a difficulty because you may not know about it. And take an instance, you're working for a company that has more than 1,000 people on the payroll. HR just processes. They don't have the time to contact you, 1,000 people. Can you imagine if they have 50 or 300 garnishee to contact and say, they just process. But what you should be looking out for is, do I owe this money to this judgment creditor? Do I know them? Is the amount correct? Can I afford this? And those kind of things to check for legality. to check for accuracy. Was it issued properly? In other words, I'm working in Graaff-Reinet. Was it issued in the court of Graaff-Reinet or in their jurisdiction? Those are kind of things that you should look for. But we've evolved. The law has evolved to the extent that there's now judicial oversight.
Then whose responsibility is it to notify me? Because it's an infringement on my personal right.
It is the judgment creditor's duty to notify you. They can do that by sending you an SMS, texting you, etc. But they also notify the employer on the hope that the employer will tell you because they're paying you.
Right. Do you want to weigh in on that?
The biggest problem with consumers is because sometimes they approach different companies to create loans, and they cannot keep track to a certain extent of where they have made those loans. So when they receive these notices before even the court grant order, they don't even know who is owing, how much they are owed. So the problem is consumers need to start to take notice of these claims. When you receive a notice, first thing you must look into it carefully and realize where have you made such a particular debt, and approach that creditor and try to resolve there and there. Because when it comes now to emolument attachment, it's become so difficult because you realize sometimes after the money has been deducted, and you know consumers have a lot of debts and they have a lot of responsibilities. When you deducted maybe amount of 1,000 rand from your salary, already you are in a problem. So it's better to take notice and address your debts immediately. So
does the territorial principle apply? What I mean by this is, ngiphi inkantolo lengakhipha i-Garnishee order. Say for instance, mina ngihlala eGauteng. Kepha i-Garnishee order yakhishwa inkantolo leseMpumalanga, for instance. So how am I able to make representations at a place very far away?
Yeah, one of the main changes that came out in the law is exactly what you're pointing out. The abuse was getting these Garnishee orders or emoluments attachment orders authorized in areas where you don't work, you don't reside, you've got no connection to it. In fact, the Western Cape case, these were all farm workers in Stellenbosch, but the Garnishee orders and the emoluments attached were issued in Kimberley. Now, there's no connection to a jurisdiction. How does a poor person travel from Stellenbosch to Kimberley? So now it's quite clear. You can only do it in places where the person resides, works, you know, where they live or work. That's clear. If it's not there, that's the first bell that is ringing. You challenge that on the basis that this default judgment was not properly granted and you get it rescinded. So that's the first thing, and that you can take up. You can challenge it through their attorneys to say, but this is not valid. I'm living here in this place. I don't know this area that you took this from. Therefore, so the court will take that into account in terms of its jurisdiction. It must be in the correct jurisdiction. If it's not, you have a right to raise that. And the court will immediately be on your side. Because there's been a lot of pressure on the courts, and my colleague here can tell you that they look for these things now. First thing the magistrate was where you live, reside. There's a tick box. If you fail those tests, they'll throw the Garnishee out.
Yeah. And the contents, or some of the contents of a Garnishee order are, number one, it has to display the case number. Number two, I mean, it has to be correctly stamped by the court, and it has to, you know, issued within the jurisdiction of the employer's business. So if it does not comply with such requirements, doesn't it render it invalid?
It does.
It does.
It does.
Okay. All right. So what then happens if it's invalid?
Well, if it's invalid, the judgment debtor need to approach the court. There's no way that she cannot approach the court so that the court can set aside it. Remember, as my colleagues have indicated before, the attorneys, they used to do scrupulous business and look at the clerks in the magistrate court and try to push their cases even though they are no jurisdiction. Now that that constitutional court has raised that the magistrate must have a judicial oversight of these matters. So it's very rare now we pick up cases where there are emolument attachment that have been granted illegally.
Okay. All right. Noma ngabe ke une Garnishee order, lokho ke akusho ukuthi kumele usale ude ngisho nasendi lomnyama. Uma ngabe kunale nkinga tsinzana ke lehhovisi le Credit Ombudsman. Asesiphinze ke sithatha linye likhefu siyabuya khona nyalo. Sakumele ke mbukele khumbula ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye lohlelo ngokushaya licingo ke ku 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919 satfolakala futhi na ku Facebook ku Twitter. Let's take our first caller for the day. Sina Nelsiwe ulapha eMpumalanga. Sakumele Nelsiwe sawubona. Nelsiwe ingabe uyangiva?
Hi, futhi kunjani?
Siyaphila kunjani Nelsiwe?
Ngiyaphila. Ngibukela ishow lana. I actually have a question regarding Garnishee orders. Ukuthi I've got an elder sister, ne?
Okay.
My elder sister, she works at a very good company, which I will not name. However, this year uhluleke ukusa umntwana esikolweni nesembuza ukuthi wenzani ngemali. She doesn't even say what she does. Uthi unezikoloto, but izikoloto nothi checka. She doesn't have a car, she doesn't have a house, she doesn't have furniture, she basically doesn't have anything. But she works at a very reputable company. So umntwana last year matriculated but failed to take child to school. So when we ask her, what is she doing? No, I'm busy doing my own things. But then we don't see those things. So then we thought, would it be possible maybe umntwana apply a Garnishee order because she's 17 this year. Apply a Garnishee order just so that she can go get the education because the parent imali na my boyfriend. We basically don't see what she does.
All right, Nelsiwe, thank you so much for your call. Nelsiwe from Mpumalanga is basically saying that she's got an elder sister who's an irresponsible mother. She doesn't pay or take care of the child. So can a Garnishee order be issued by the child against the parent?
Well, in that case, the child needs to approach the court first. Remember, the Garnishee order is
the child is 16, remember. Yes, does he have the legal standee to approach the court?
They can, in terms of the Maintenance Act, they can approach the court, in particular in circumstances like this, and apply for maintenance. Okay. And then the maintenance officer will deal with the matter, and if the court does grant, or there is a consent, or there is a default judgment against her mother, then if the mother failed to contribute towards the upbringing of the child, then the child can approach again the court and ask for emolument attachment order so that she can receive the money.
What if she disputes it, saying that the child, the financial situation? Can a parent dispute it?
Well, I think there's two distinct things. It's right to maintenance, and a Garnishee or emoluments attachment order relates to a right created by a debt. In her instance, it's not a debt per se. It is a social issue relating to the right to be looked after by parents, by a mother or child. Correctly so, my colleague states she needs to go to the maintenance court. She needs to lodge a formal complaint at the maintenance court that my mother is not maintaining me. My mother is not doing the most fundamental right that I have, and that is to be educated. The court will then look into the circumstances and issue an order for maintenance. If then she breaks that order of maintenance, she'll be placed on the credit bureau. And that would have further consequences for employment. So what the caller issue is a social issue. It's not a commercial issue relating to payment of debt. It's a social issue relating to not being maintained by a parent. And there are avenues in that way through the maintenance court to get that paid. We must divorce that maintenance from a civil judgment, which is payment of a debt. This is a social obligation to educate somebody. Because you must be careful as to where you draw the line.
Sure.
Because you want a very expensive pair of shoes. Your mother can't afford it. You can't take your mother to maintenance court. I want that 3,000 rand shoe. Your mother can afford a 300 rand shoe. You must be careful to draw the line in terms of where you go, because these are social issues.
Okay. Nelson's case is actually very interesting.
It's a very interesting.
Yes.
I
And
never
it leads
thought
me to my
somebody
next
would raise
question.
something like that.
Indeed, indeed.
But she has every right to approach the maintenance court.
Okay.
And she should do that.
All right. All right. Now, if a Garnishee order is being handed down by the court, what is it that the court looks at? What sort of consideration that it looks at? Does it take into cognizance affordability, for instance? If I'm already over-indebted, does the court look into that?
That's the major change that came about in relation to the legislation that has changed. The Courts of Law Amendment, first thing, and I'll give my colleague a chance to say a bit more on that, judicial oversight must be before a magistrate. And second and important, it is limited to 25% of your gross salary. 25% of your gross salary. And if you have other people in the queue that are already collecting money, and if it exceeds 25%, the court will not grant that order.
Okay.
So the 25% is very important. So in other words, basically what it says is that if you are earning 100 Rand, and nobody may take more than 25 Rand of that 100 Rand. You may have seen that insert, and we get this instances in our office, where the person was not only left with zero, we had an instance where the person was left with minus 47. They owed 47 Rand. Now you're restricted to only 25% of your salary may be taken to pay debts through an emoluments attachment.
Okay. I'll ask you to weigh in on that. But for now, let's go to Etembi. Sakuna Lungile. Sakumele ehlelweni Lungile sawubona?
Yebo bhuti unjani?
Siyaphila kunjani ma?
Ngikhona.
Right. What's on your mind?
Bhuti bengicela ukubuza angazi noma ngangisiza na.
Yeah.
Kusho ukuthi ngiye ngahamba ngafaka i-maintenance for ubaba omntwana. Since ngingasebenzi. So balokhu bathi as a court wagcina engizanga. So bagcina ecourt bakhipha i-Garnishee order ukuthi ngihambise emsebenzini manje kuphi kwi-HR department. So I went there ngabapha i-court order, and then imali they were supposed to ukuthi bafake imali ngeJanuary. Manje siku-March, January bathe no imali ayikhoni ukungena i-bounce back because i-card ngathi ne-problem. Then ngaya e-bank ngaba lokhuzana ngenze i-bank statement. Ayikazi ingene kuze kube manje. Saze saphinda ngabuyela court bangifexela babanikeza ilokhuzana i-account i-bank statement and everything, but kuze kube manje angincedakala. And umntwana inkinga umntwana ubhadala school fees every month, and then ilokhuzana transport. So angisebenzi yami ilapho.
All right, Lungile siyabonga kakhulu kusishayela. That's another maintenance issue. To know where you know that.
Yes, I think people are really suffering when it comes to maintenance issues. But coming to what the caller has said, let's start that. She said the respondent did not come to court, which means there was a default judgment that was issued against the respondent. And after the default judgment has been issued, it is clear that he continued to fail to pay the maintenance order. Hence, she indicated there was an emolument attachment that was issued. In cases like this, because the employer has been notified by her in this instance that there is an order against the respondent who is in your employment, and you have been ordered to deduct money, and clearly the employer has failed his duty to ensure that he deducts money on behalf of the beneficiary from the respondent who is their employee. It is not stopping there. Okay. The complainant must approach the court so that the court can subpoena the employer so that he can explain himself in court the reasons why he failed to execute the court order.
Okay.
It cannot stop there because the child needs to be supported.
All right. Lungile ngiyathemba ukuthi utawusitakala kulelo hlangothi. Uma ngabe ke uke wathi tfola une Garnishee order mbukeli singathanza ukuthi kwathi ukuthi yakusebenzela yini wena. Wancedakala yini kulesikweleti sakho. Wanyalo ke asasiye ngatolo siyabuya khona nyalo. Uma uma ngabe uke watitfola ke kule nkinga yema-Garnishee order singathanza kwati ukuthi yakusebentela yini tincingo tetfu solo tivuliwe. Our call numbers are on your screens right now, 011-714-6918. All right, let's take a look at Facebook messages that have been coming through. Zandile uthi yena Brasimpra, I think Garnishee orders is is to authorize creditors to attach a debt owed or which will become due to the debtor by a third party excluding the state. For example, if you are an estate agent, your creditor could attach a commission owed. Non-Hlupego uthi, I like your topic, thank you very much. Njabulo uthi yena ke Garnishee order iyasebenza yini uma usengaphansi komzali? If isebenza lencwadi yenkantolo ibopha bani uma ukweleta? Owethu yena ke uthi xa ndisiva kwakuhle lento iluncedo kodwa ke iza kabuhlungu kumuntu ongashoyiyo. All right, thank you so much for those Facebook messages. Do you want to weigh in on some of these messages that have been coming through?
I think correctly so. The first one I mentioned that commission, etc., which is correctly stated.
Okay. Yes. All right, Zubanzi?
No, I'm covered.
Oh, okay. All right, let's now go back to the issue of affordability. Nikki said that the Garnishee order should also take into consideration that it shouldn't take more than 25% of the employee's earnings. So what if the 25% is already more?
No, when it comes to maintenance section and the right of children to be maintained, the application of the law is different. As my colleagues have indicated, the children are given preference over any debts that you have as a consumer when it comes to maintenance of children. So you can go as far, and the court can take you so far to task to ensure that you maintain your children. Because what is important and what many people are doing is not to maintain and create so much debts to ensure, sometimes to frustrate their mothers. And at the end of the day, it's built up to the children that are suffering at the end of the day. So hence the court is saying, above the debts that we are having, even if we have reached the stage to say you have 25% that you have in terms of your creditors, but when it comes to children, we are going to overlook into that and come to terms to ensure that you pay maintenance.
Mm. And again, Nikki, the issue of impeding my personal rights comes into play here. If a Garnishee order is being issued and then it's added onto my payslip, that it interferes with my credit report.
Yes, it does interfere with your credit report, but
then my rights have been trampled.
Yeah, but to just pick up on what Banzi said earlier, the maintenance, there's no 25% cap. Maintenance is done on the lifestyle that the person lives, how flashy, whatever annual means. Could be more than the 25. The 25 is related to civil debt.
Oh, okay.
So if the employer is served with a Garnishee order or emoluments attachment order, and they see that this person is already paying more than 25% of the emoluments on Garnishees, they will notify the judgment creditor that made that request and tell them that the person is already 25% over.
Okay.
They'll have to hold back and wait. So they can't process that emoluments attachment order because it's already 25%. But not many employers know about this. They just process. The point is that we need to do consumer education to advise people of their rights so that they raise these issues. Because some employers, despite the 25% rule, they just process. And some of them aren't aware of the 25% rule. So they'll give 100% of your salary away to people that you're owing money when it should be restricted to 25%. But there you have rights. But it's a bit of a, in a sense, a hassle.
Right.
You've got to go and make this claim, do this, do that. You always got to raise these defenses.
Right.
It's not that people are fighting for your defenses upright. It's left to you to raise those defenses.
Tebogo is right here in Johannesburg. Sagumol Tebogo ehlelweni sawubona.
Thank you, ma.
Tebogo uyangiva?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, talk to us. What's on your mind? Talk to us, Tebogo.
Regarding the maintenance, my baby's child was garnished in 2014, and it only paid 2 months. And then when I went to inquire what's going on, I was told that he quit his job. And then I was like, now what's going to happen going forward? I find out that he's got another job. I went to tell them the maintenance court. But up to now, they still didn't help me. And worse is that I've been there a million times. At the end of the day, I was advised to apply for Section 35, which I did. And then they were like, they'll call me. But no one is calling me. Whenever I do inquiries with them, I am told that it's taking longer. My child is now 6 years at home. She can't go to school because at the moment I'm unemployed. She's autistic. I'm a single parent. I don't know what to do. I went to those organizations where they are helping this kind of problems. Unfortunately, now I feel they are too slow and time is moving. My child is getting late for school. I don't know what to do. I'm just confused with this whole thing. I'm frustrated.
All right,
they sent me from pillar to post for years.
Yeah. All right, I'm so sorry to hear that, but then thank you so much for your call. Now, this is an unemployed mother, and she's facing a huge problem. How would you assist her?
I'm sorry for what is going through, but she indicated a few things. One, the father of her child was working, then she stopped working. He stopped working. And there are certain steps that should have been taken that when he stopped working,
well, I understand he moved on to another
He moved to another job.
Yeah.
When he stopped working and moved to another job, the responsibility of the maintenance officer is to ensure that he provides the order to the new employer to ensure that he deducts the money. However, if the employee keep on doing that, it shows that he is a serial non-complier with the Maintenance Act. And that needs to be investigated. Because sometimes the respondent tend to duck and dive in terms of ensuring that they are maintained. It does not stop the court to investigate even the bank of the respondent. The maintenance court has those powers to do that, to issue summonses to the bank and make sure that we know what is going through the bank of these employees, of this respondent, and such money can be attached to ensure that the child is maintained.
Nikki, remember when you started, we talked about the requirements or the contents of a Garnishee order, and they relate to the fact that it has to be issued within the employer's business or within the jurisdiction of the employer's business. So what if I resign and I get a totally different job? And is it going to follow me?
In pure way, yes, it will follow you. A judgment is valid for 30 years. What was granted was a emoluments attachment order against a certain employer. And at the time that it was granted in the right jurisdiction. It was granted where you were employed or you resided. Many people do this to avoid the obligations in terms of paying their debt and maintenance. They deliberately leave their jobs so that you may not follow them. But when you find out that this person is now employed, even in another jurisdiction, the fact that it was granted properly in the correct jurisdiction, it follows you. So you can run, but you can't hide.
Okay.
So you will still be cut. They'll get you. And
are they going to issue another Garnishee order?
No, it's the order it's a court order that was granted in the first court. You just moved to a different jurisdiction. You were working in Gauteng. You've now moved to Mahikeng in the northwest. You're working for a certain company. That order just needs to be served on that company, that there is an emoluments attachment order for this amount, which was validly granted. Please continue paying us.
All right. Hi. Nyalo gesa sasa carefully kina mbugele sebo yako na nyalo ungasanya gati. Welcome back. Gentlemen, I want to engage you on this. So if I'm not entirely happy about a Garnishee order that has been handed down, what options do I have?
If you're not happy, you can approach the judgment creditor first, the creditor, discuss it with them, normally by that stage it's with their lawyers or whatever. Approach their lawyers, but you have the right to approach the court. But you need to raise a valid defense. And this is what we get in the office all the time in relation to Garnishee orders. Firstly, it relates to the amount owing. We're challenging the amount owing on behalf of the consumer. Oftentimes we get issues where the debt is prescribed and a judgment was granted after the debt is prescribed. We can take that, so you need to look at amount, when was it granted, and the prescription issue. Those are the main common features that we deal with in regard to garnishees. So it's important that you look at your documentation, but your question, do you have a right to rectify it? Undoubtedly. But it's a mission, and you've got to pick up and go and sort it out. Nobody's going to sort it out for you.
So, and in the case of prescribed debit orders, what normally happens there?
That particular order cannot be valid if it was granted while the debt has prescribed. Again, as my colleague said, you need to approach. You need to approach the court. All these duties is upon you as a judgment debtor to ensure that you follow every step in ensuring that your name is cleared before it's go to credit bureau.
Yeah.
So it is upon you. You can't stop, you have to. But if you approach the court, as you indicated, you must have a valid reasons indeed to approach the court and request the court to set aside the judgment that has been granted or to rescind the judgment that has been granted.
Sometimes uthola ukuthi iGarnishee order is handled very badly by baqashi. So yini ke maphutsa emaqashi libawindako ke in most cases? Like what sort of mistakes do employers do when a Garnishee order is being dealt with?
The employer.
The employer, yeah. Because sometimes it's handled very badly.
They deduct the wrong amount. They don't look at the full amount that is owing. The most common is wrong deduction. More than what you're supposed to have paid, or sometimes to your detriment less, which means you go to catch up later. Okay. So it's normally that which relates to the amount. But it's quite clear. The order is clear to the HR department. You are authorized to deduct an amount of X from this person's salary. So they must comply with the order. Oftentimes they make a mistake with the numbers.
So how long should it be valid for, the Garnishee order?
It is valid up until the debt has been settled.
Okay.
Or it has been rescinded by court of law.
So ngaishinja along the way, can it be amended? Is there room for such amendments?
You can approach the court and judgment creditor if indeed you want to address in that fashion.
What are some of the grounds for amendment?
Affordability.
Oh, okay.
My circumstances have changed.
And your circumstances, yes.
Right.
I'm earning less, or
you have additional child now.
Okay.
You need to maintain.
So that debt, can it be reduced?
Yes, if you negotiate with your judgment creditor, yes, it can be reduced so that you can afford it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Nikki, you raised a very interesting point off camera that there is a 5% interest that's being charged by the employer. So that's double trouble for me.
Yeah, it's not an interest. So when the sheriff delivers the court order to an employer, they have a right to deduct 5% an admin charge. It's called an admin fee. So if you're supposed to pay over 100% to the judgment creditor, they have a right to take 5 Rand off that and pay only 95 Rand over. So it's their fee, they call it an admin fee, for facilitating that payment, for doing that order or the direct deposit, etc.
Okay.
However, not many do it. Those that do, I don't see what real benefit they're getting from it, but they have a right to charge 5%, a 5% admin fee, not a commission. It's an admin fee to facilitate the payment of that amount.
All right. Uma ngabe ngidecide again ngiyavulendo ngiyabaleka emsebentini or I don't comply with the Garnishee order, what are the consequences?
Well, it's difficult. If you run away from work and resign and you opt not to work, that judgment remains there. Okay. And whenever you decide to continue with your employment or not necessary employment, maybe opening your own business, there is a way that that judgment can continue to follow you.
Okay.
You cannot completely run away from your debts.
Now, Nikki, say I'm faced with this situation for the very first time. I've never experienced this kind of thing. So how would you advise me, just as a parting shot?
Remember that emoluments attachment order, a Garnishee order, is the last resort of collection. It is when you are not cooperating with me. I'm calling you, please pay me. You're digging your head in the sand. I'm sending you letters, you're ignoring it. So it's the last resort that you don't want to play ball with me. I'm going to go for you in the way that is there to collect the debt. It's the last resort. The best thing to do, and again, we always advise, when you're in trouble, talk to people. Talk to your creditor. Tell them how much you can. When you engage them, they may push you for a higher amount, but that would avoid you getting right to the end. Obviously, the court case came about by rogue collectors using this collection method as a preferred method. But it's rogue attorneys that do that. But remember, it's only as a last resort. So play up front, play the game. You may not land up with a Garnishee order.
Okay. Your final words, Mzobanzi?
Well, what I will say to the consumers, it is important that when they receive these notices from their creditors that they owe a particular amount of money, they need to negotiate, as my colleagues have indicated. They need to go to their creditors and indicate their financial position as to why they cannot afford or why they have not paid a particular debt, and try to settle this thing before it goes to court, because when it goes to court, it has a ramification in terms of you will be put on credit bureau, which at the end of the day is going to create problems for you.
All right. And that's how we come to the end of our show today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our guests for taking the time and the invaluable insights. Our show repeats every Thursday at 10 p.m. Otherwise, you can tune in again next week, Monday, with my colleague Alicia Jai. From Isimpio Ngwane and the rest of the team, Nsalagash.
Yilungelo.